In a previous video, we learned how to draw lines, delete them, highlight them, manipulate them a little, and move them around. In this video, we're going to build on those concepts and learn about drawing lines using tracking and object snaps. But before we do that, let's go ahead and open a new drawing in AutoCAD. Once it's open, type units. Change the units to architectural. We want to make sure we're drawing with feet and inches and then hit OK. Alright, well, we'll start with tracking. Now, drawing with straight lines is essential for good CAD. AutoCAD has settings that will help you draw straight, and that's called tracking. More specifically, it's called polar tracking. Now, polar tracking is controlled by the symbol at the very bottom right-hand portion of your screen that looks like a circle with an angle on it. I call it the Pac-Man button. I hope everybody knows who Pac-Man is. If you don't, that means I'm old, and you probably need to Google that stuff to know what I'm talking about. Anyways, if Pac-Man is on, he's blue. That means the polar tracking setting is on. And we can test the setting by starting the line command. Start the first point of your line and move right, left, up, down. Do you see that green line extending from the cursor as I move in those directions? That's the polar tracking line. It allows you to draw lines that are perfectly straight. Just by moving your cursor, you activate the polar tracking. Now, sometimes you have to go a little slow in order to get it to show up. If you go too fast, you might miss it. Hey, that's pretty cool, right? We can draw perfectly straight lines. As long as that green line is there, it's automatically going to make our lines perfectly straight. Now you can control the angles at which the polar tracking line displays by clicking on the small arrow to the right of Pac-Man, and you'll see a list of angles that the tracking can use to help you draw straight lines. Now, do you remember geometry? We all do. Well, AutoCAD is based on geometry planes, so that includes angles and degrees. So if I draw straight up, I'm drawing at angle 0. If I draw perfectly to the right, I'm drawing at 90 degrees. If I draw straight down, I'm drawing at 180 degrees, and straight to the left is 270 degrees. So here in the polar tracking menu, you can see all the different angles that you can draw out. Now, beginners to AutoCAD, they typically think, hey, the more angles I have for tracking, the easier it's going to be to draw, right? Well, that's not true, actually. You're going to drive yourself nuts if you choose lots of angles to draw to. So I suggest keeping it on the default setting of 45, 90, 135, and etc. And you can always come back to reset the tracking to accommodate any special angles that you might need to draw with. So to demonstrate how the tracking works, if we want to draw a 1-foot line at a 45-degree angle, I'm going to select the line command, pick a point, and then I'm going to move my cursor in the 45-degree angle area. Notice that it automatically gets that tracking line going. And then I'm going to type 1 apostrophe for 1 foot, hit enter, and it has drawn a line at a perfect 45-degree angle. So let's try it one more time. Let's try doing it at the opposite direction. Let's go over here, and we'll go down this way. Let's do a 1 foot 6, so 1 apostrophe, 6, enter, and there it has drawn a 1 foot 6 inch line at the 135-degree angle. So polar tracking is really great if you want to ensure that your line is being drawn at specific angles, including the basic 0, 90, 180, 270 angles. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these lines, and then we're going to talk a little bit about object snaps. When I say object snaps, I'm not talking about Macho Man Randy Savage snapping into a Slim Jim. We're talking about connecting lines and objects together. Now, at the very bottom right hand of your screen, you should see a symbol that has a square with a little green circle on the top left corner of the square. This is the object snap, or this is actually what CAD people call O-snaps. Make sure it's turned on or that it's highlighted in blue. If it's not, go ahead and highlight it in blue. This controls how lines and other objects connect to each other. So when drawing in AutoCAD, we always want our lines connecting. We don't want to see any gaps between endpoints on AutoCAD. So this is just another setting that allows us to easily snap the endpoints of lines together. So let's practice this. Let's draw two parallel lines. Anywhere on your screen, I'm just going to do some diagonals. Kind of like this, something like that. Now I drew this, but now I realize that, hey, I want this end to actually connect to this end of the line. So I highlight the line I want to move, click the end grip, and move it right over towards the line. And you'll see that AutoCAD pretty much snaps it right into place, and you see the little green box indicates that, hey, I'm connecting to the very end of that line. There's not going to be any gaps as long as I see that green box. So then I click, I hit escape, and you'll see that the two lines have connected together. Pretty simple, right? So anytime that you see a green shape when you're trying to connect your objects together, CAD is basically going to snap it into place wherever it is that you are about to draw at on that point. So let's try this again. Select a line. This time let's snap to the midpoint. Now here you see a triangle, whereas you see a square over here. The different shapes equals different places to snap to. So for midpoints, you're going to see a green triangle. For endpoints, you're going to see a green square. So let's snap to the midpoint of this line, and let's just go straight up. Yes. Click and escape to end it, and that is how you can connect lines together without having to continually draw things. Now I want to show you some options. If we click on the arrow next to the Object Snap button, you're going to see all these different settings that we can choose to snap to. I always make sure that endpoint, midpoint, center, extension, and intersection are checked. I don't want all the snaps to be on because, again, I could pull my hair out because CAD will want to snap to all these different places while I'm trying to draw, and I actually want to have more control than snapping to everything that I see on my screen. So I can always come down here to select a setting for special circumstances if I need to, but for the most part this should do very well for you, especially when you're just learning CAD. Now what I want to do is I want to show you like what happens if you don't have object snaps or O snaps turned on. So I'm going to make it white by just clicking on it. That means I've turned that setting off. Come up to the line command, and I'm going to try and place a line here at the top of this line. Well, gosh, I can't even do that. Like, it's not snapping. I don't know if I've got the end of the line. Maybe if I zoom in I can do it better. Not really. So click, draw a line, enter. Wow, yeah, see, this is what we want to avoid at all costs. This can cause your measurements to be off. It can cause a lot of things to be off. So when we're drawing, I'm going to delete this line for right now. I'm going to turn Object Snaps back on. And here we go. I know that that line is perfectly placed at the end of the other line, and nothing is going to be off. I'm going to be drawing correctly. Just so that you can see how far in we were zoomed, pretty far in. Alright, so that is object snaps or O snaps. Now there may be times when you need to turn object snap off, and you can only really understand that when you start drawing objects, but 9 times out of 10 you are going to want to have O snaps on, so make sure that it's blue and highlighted and ready to go. Now directly to the left of the Object Snaps button is a symbol that looks like an angle. I affectionately call this the alligator beak. This is the Object Snap tracking button, and it's kind of cool button. So I'm going to erase the lines that we've drawn, and I'm going to draw a new line. We'll just do a straight across. Escape to exit the command. Now I'm going to do the line command again. And this time I'm just going to hover over one of the end places. So again, we've got the O snaps showing up. But O snaps tracking is a little different from polar tracking. I can move my cursor directly to the right and see how it's kind of got a polar tracking green line to it, but it's not extending all the way out to the right. It's just going where my cursor's going. And you have to kind of move it slowly. If you go too fast, you lose it. See? So I am just doing this, and let's say that I want to place a line about 1 foot away from the end point of that first line I drew. So I'm going to type 1 apostrophe enter, and there it started the line a foot away from where I originally drew. Basically, object snap tracking allows me to place a line that is aligned with the end of a first line without having to actually snap to the end of that first line. So I'm going to go ahead and end this line, and I'm going to hit escape. Now there's also going to be times when you want to start a line maybe on a line, but you don't want to do an end point and you don't want to do a midpoint. You want to do somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to hover over the end point, and I'm going to extend it over. Let's do 4 inches. And now I've placed a line exactly 4 inches from the end point of this line, and we can know that by going to measure and click, and I did 4 inches as my distance. So that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this lesson using polar tracking, object snaps or O snaps, as well as object snap tracking. Practice lots to get familiar with these new behaviors. They are very essential for quick and efficient drawing on your future projects.